In this video, what I'd like to do is go through an example on our beginning equation practice part 2. And the example I'd like to do is question number 2. And we begin with 2 mg's. Anytime I'm drawing a substance, what I like to do is I like to cover up the coefficient. And the reason I want to cover up the coefficient is it allows me to see which atoms are bonded together. In this case, we simply just have an Mg. So I just draw an Mg atom. And then the coefficient lets me know how many of those substances I have. So I have an Mg that's bonded together, and then another Mg, 2 Mgs. I would not connect these Mgs because it's not Mg with a subscript 2. If it was a subscript 2, then those two would be connected. And then it's plus O2. So I cover this up and I find an O bonded to an O. Now I know that when O's bond, they're double bonded, but we're drawing the skeletal structure, so if you didn't put the double bond, that would be fine. And when I uncover, there's an invisible 1 here, so I only draw it one time. This is this is O2 bonded together. And then I cover this up and it shows that Mg is bonded to O. Mg bonded to O. So I draw Mg bonded to O. Now, technically, this is not the way Mg and O bond. Technically, Mg sends 2 electrons over to O. And those 2 electrons, because Mg is a metal and O is a nonmetal, it becomes this. But for this purpose, we just draw the ratio that is connected, Mg and O. So 1 Mg, 1 O, and there are 2 of them, so we draw Mg and O again, 2 Mg and O's that are bonded. When we look at the atom inventory, we count. There's 2 Mg's on this side, and there's 2 Mg's on this side. There are 2 O's, and there are 2 O's. So the equation is balanced. The number of atoms of each element are the same on both sides of the equation. In letter B, they ask us to whether it's an element or it's a compound. Here, there's only one type of atom, so we call it an element. Here, there's only one type of atom, so we call it an element. Here there are 2 types of atoms, so we call it a compound. Then, according to my chart, if it's an element, it is either an atom or it's a molecule. Because these are by themselves, this element is an atom. And because these guys are bonded, because the 2 atoms are bonded, we call it a molecule. Here we need to decide on a compound. Is it a metal with a nonmetal forming ions, or is it a nonmetal with a nonmetal forming molecules? Here it's a metal. Mg is on the left side of the periodic table. Oxygen's on the right side of the periodic table, so it's a metal and a nonmetal. So we have to call it a formula unit. It's an ionic compound, and if it's an ionic compound, the smallest unit is a formula unit. When I write my sentence regarding this equation, I would start out with 2 atoms of, and I'm going to call it magnesium. The element's name is magnesium. This first plus sign is reacts with. 2 atoms of magnesium reacts with, and then one molecule of oxygen. 1 molecule of oxygen. And then the arrow is to produce 2 formula units of, and then the name of this guy is magnesium oxide. The way we name ionic compounds, the name of the metal, and then oxygen gets changed to oxide. I hope this helps with doing the 4 pieces of a balanced chemical equation.